Welcome to the program. Today, ladies, we are going to tackle the top 10 guys to avoid. And I want to invite the guys to tune in today as well. And the reason for that is all this is really coming from a book my wife and I wrote years ago called How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. And I remember I was at a conference once and this guy came to buy it. And I'm like, well, you know, this book is just for the girls. And he's like, I know, my girlfriend told me I need to read it. And I'm like, okay, a lot of this content is helpful to hear, whether you're a guy or a girl, not only for the girls to see the red flags in these potential relationships, but for the guys to look at within of like, okay, am I some of these guys? Is there some stuff I really need to work on in my own life to find the love that I truly desire? Now, before we dive in, first, I want to invite you to come with us on pilgrimage. Father Agustino Torres and myself will be leading 2 pilgrimages this summer, one to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem, the Dead Sea, the River Jordan, all over the place where Christ walked. Come with us there, or to Krakow, Poland, where we're going to check out the footsteps of St. John Paul II. We're going to go up in the mountains where he used to go on retreat and in hiking. We're going to see the place of his birth, Our Lady of Czestochowa, Auschwitz, St. Maximilian Kolbe, Divine Mercy. Both these pilgrimages are going to be life-changing and unforgettable, so consider signing up for them. Just go to chastity.com/pilgrimage and check it out. Also, today's program is being brought to you by Daily Catholic Wisdom and also by the app Hollow. Now, a little confession, what is the first thing you typically do when you wake up in the morning? I mean, what's the first thing you look at typically? 9 people out of 10, it's the phone, right? You wake up, your eyes are hardly even open, and bam, that screen's in your face. And so that can be a good thing. And if we sanctify that moment. And these 2 things on our phones can give us the capacity to do that. Daily Catholic Wisdom is an email you're going to get first thing in the morning with an inspirational quote from a saint or a great Catholic thinker. And it's just a way to sanctify that first moment of the day. You also get exclusive discounts to some great Catholic books and devotionals and things like that. And so I'd encourage you to sign up at this. Just go to catholicwisdom.com/Chastity Project, and you can get this for free every single morning. It's not some big, long dissertation you need to read. It's literally 1 or 2 sentences to start your day in the right direction. And then also the Hollow app. You know, I'm a big fan of that. There's so much incredible content there. Literally hundreds of audio-guided prayers. There's music you can listen to, sleep stories if you're having a difficult time falling asleep. All you just got to do is go to hallow.com/lustisboring, and you get to try that app out for free. And everybody who listens to our podcast who tries these things for free, it tells those organizations that, hey, it's working. Sponsoring our program is helping them to grow their apostolates as well. So it really is a win-win for everybody. So make sure to check out the Pilgrimage, the Hallow app, as well as Daily Catholic Wisdom. Now, let's jump right in. A couple of years ago, I had heard of a marriage prep program in which the engaged couples who went through this program, about 50% of them called off their engagements and broke up. And I don't think it was even a Catholic program. I think it was an evangelical one. But they prided themselves on this massive success rate of literally breaking up half of the engagements of people who came on their retreat. And I think this is fantastic. Now, why would I say that? Like some grim reaper of love? Well, a lot of these people shouldn't be getting married in the first place. And a lot of people have some issues that need to get sorted out. And maybe they could have a marriage down the road. But man, there's some red flags. And a good marriage prep program doesn't just, bless the relationship. Hey, go get them. It's like, hey, is there stuff that needs to get taken care of? Because man, as hard as it might be to call off an engagement, how much more painful 10 years down the road when there's kids involved. And so one of the beauties of these types of marriage prep programs is they're blunt. They call you out. And so today, as I speak to single women in particular, I'm going to be blunt with you, and I think you'll appreciate it. It's almost as I see you as my sister in Christ, and a good brother is gonna tell you as it is. And so what we're gonna look at today is the top 10 guys that you want to avoid when it comes to relationships. When Crystal and I wrote that book on how to find your soulmate, this is the first chapter we put in that book. To start it all off, and if you're gonna find real love, you have to avoid its counterfeit. And we ended up turning it also into an ebook called 10 Guys You're Better Off Without. And you can get that free by clicking the link in the show notes or just going to chastity.com/10guys, the number 10, then guys, and you get the ebook that kind of summarizes today's podcast. So let's run them down. Guy number 1 that you want to avoid is the flip-flopper, all right? This is the story of a relationship where the guy 1 minute is basically professing his undying love for you, and the next minute, he can't even be bothered to pick up his cell phone, not texting you back. You don't know where he's at. It's kind of one minute this way, 1 minute the other. It's almost like a dance where you're always out of sync. That as soon as you draw close to him, he seems to pull back and lose interest. But then when you get frustrated and you're thinking, okay, I'm out the door, it's at that moment that he becomes the guy that you've been waiting for him to become. Oh, wait, now he's interested in me. And then you're back interested in him, and then he's gone. And so a lot of girls think, well, what do I need to do to win this guy? And sometimes even after they break up, she'll hook up with him, hoping it's going to reignite some spark of interest to make him miss what he used to have. But this always backfires because it makes him respect her less. And I think her friends who look onto this relationship, it looks like she's stuck in like one of those revolving doors in the lobby of a hotel. Like, okay, 1 minute she's in, next minute, oh, she's out. Oh, she's back in, out. It's like, make up your mind. And unfortunately, the girls who find themselves in these relationships, when people ask them, like, are you guys dating? Often the best she can reply is, well, we're kind of dating. You're not meant to kind of date. Commitment is not a kind of thing. And I remember getting an email from a woman, and this is what she wrote to me. Speaking of this guy that she was in this flip-floppy relationship, she said, we are soulmates and will be bound together for the rest of our lives. Why is he afraid to accept our status right now and squeeze in as many random hookups as possible? Well, I'm sorry to break the news, but like, he's not afraid of your status. He knows your status, and it seems that he's enjoying it quite a bit. She's the one who's afraid to accept her status with him. And it's almost as if he's saying, like, look, you just wait here while I use other women, and then when I'm done with them, I'm going to fall hopelessly in love with you forever. Sure. No, look, it's not going to happen. Look, guys are simple creatures. If we want to be with a woman, we will be with her. If she lives on the moon, we would commit to her from Earth. It doesn't matter. We're simple creatures, and love thrives in the presence of commitment. And so you don't want to waste your years, literally, of your life dragging on a relationship that basically exists only in your imagination. It might be kind of tough to hear this advice, but I think it's only going to be more painful if you ignore it. You are meant for more than breadcrumbing, okay? Breadcrumbing is when someone offers you just little bits of nourishment along the way of a relationship, not enough to actually nourish you and feed you, but enough to keep you coming for more. Oh, there's another breadcrumb, a little bit of affection or attention, approval, whatever, and it just keeps stringing you along without any stable source of real nourishment. I remember reading one woman, and this is what she remarked. She said, when we're with the wrong man, and he's clearly lacking the qualities we want in a partner, we gladly supply them for him. We fill in the blanks instead of realizing he's wrong to begin with. And it dawned on me, the whole time I worried about why he didn't like me, I forgot to ask myself whether or not I liked him. And so, ladies, instead of waiting on some indecisive guy, realize that you're simply better off with someone who can't wait to commit with you. So don't wait around waiting for the flip-flopper to commit, hoping he's going to eventually want you. Look, walk away and just let him wish that he deserved you. Be brave because love awaits you. Now, guy number 2. This is a guy we would call the problem child, also known as the fixer-upper. Sometimes he comes from a troubled family, has a troubled past, maybe had some trouble with the law, drinking, drugs, depression. I mean, you name it. He's been through some stuff or whatever. And the woman typically will dream about this guy's potential while essentially downplaying the fact that he refuses to take any mature steps to grow up and actually improve his life. And so she sees him almost not so much as a person, as a project. It's like one of those home makeover TV shows. And I've used this analogy before where, she falls in love with the potential of what she hopes she can do with this property, so to speak. And yeah, I know it's got a leaky roof and it's got this and, the septic tank doesn't work, but yeah, we can fix it all. And she invests years of her life and so many of her emotions hoping for what this is going to be because she sees the potential in him that her parents don't see, that he might not even see in himself. I remember one woman who went through this emailed me, and she said, I don't want to be used as an object to cure his depression, problems, or physical needs. I felt like I was being used like a medication. I remember meeting another woman, and she was dating an older guy who just happened to be in prison. And I asked her, well, what's the reason for his incarceration? This is what she said. She said, I asked him why he was in jail, and he said, quote, "They caught me on surveillance cameras, but all I was doing was standing there." Now, I tried to point out to her that people typically don't get arrested for standing there, of course, unless they're standing, in Nancy Pelosi's office or in the Supreme Court or Capitol building. They should be standing there. She was still convinced of this guy's innocence. And sometimes when a girl realizes, okay, this just isn't healthy, and she starts to pull away, that's when he kind of pours on the pity party, right? I can't live without you. If you leave me, then I'm going to fall back into this, and I'm going to build a methamphetamine lab, and I'll be incarcerated. And so out of pity, she stays with the guy and tries not only to be his messiah, but to be his mother. But I want you ladies to really think, what is the long-term romantic impact of mothering a man? Because in the end, even if you do mother him and he gets better and grows up, men don't want to marry their moms. I'm sorry, they don't. They want to marry their soulmate. They want to marry their lover. And so the more you mother him, the more in time it will actually decrease his romantic feelings towards you. And so what he's got going on here is emotional immaturity. Don't stay on this roller coaster, because you'll notice the longer you do, somebody does change, but it's not him for the better. It's unfortunately you for the worse. So stay away from the problem child and do the best thing you can for him. Pray for him, but let go of him. Guy number 3 that you want to avoid is the walking hormone. Okay, now teenage guys just anatomically have about 20 times as much testosterone in their body as a teenage girl does. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's what does the man do with these desires? Does he master his body, or do his body's desires master him? And the answer to that question is whether he's a man or a boy. Now, the walking hormone tends to be more overt in regards to his desire to seduce you. And so he might give you different lines. Oh, you're such a tease. If you love me, you'd show me. You'd do this with me. I mean, what's the problem? We've done it before. Don't you like me? I mean, I feel like you're not attracted to me if you don't do this stuff with me. And so he's trying anger, guilt, manipulation, anything it's going to take to get you to satisfy his physical desires, which he calls needs, because he's a man, right? And men have these needs. And if you're not supplying those, then you're just like this stingy, uptight, awful prude. I mean, you owe him kind of, don't you? And so they'll try all types of tactics. In fact, there was a newspaper article I read once when I lived in California. This guy was a story of the guy who's 28-year-old soccer coach, and he conned several of his female players into sleeping with him. Apparently what he did is he showed them a red amulet, okay, so a little necklace he wore filled with fluid, and said that it was his life essence, and it would dwindle if he did not have sex. And once it disappeared, he would die. Now, unbelievably, several of the young women on the team actually believed this guy and slept with him. Now, thankfully, the guy was arrested, and now both he and his life essence are serving time in prison, which is great. But a lot of times, if the girl doesn't fall for these tactics, like I said, he's going to turn on the guilt. You are cruel, you're heartless, you're stingy, you're prude. And they might say, well, look, we've already done certain things. It's not really that big of a deal. In other words, your body's not a big deal. Your soul's not a big deal. Basically, you're not a big deal. And the only way that a woman in this situation will get a guy to stop using him is if she stops letting him. One woman emailed me after one of these, and she said, I always kept telling myself, no, he really cares about you. He's going through a very tough time right now, and he's just confused. No, he's really not using you. And she said, just like that, I lied to myself for months on end. But what you will find is that excuses prolong problems. And so don't make excuses for him. And if you sleep with a guy who's like a player, long term, it's basically inviting child abuse. Because when you say yes to the sexual intimacy in that act, you're in a sense saying yes to life, whether you're expecting it or not, and life comes. And if this guy's a boy and he's a player, it's an invitation to child abuse. Because if he can't love a woman, he's not going to know how to rightly love children either. And so for love of your future children, stay far away from these guys. And these would include the guys who are addicted to pornography as well. Maybe he had a slip up, he's doing better. He's using, accountability software like Covenant Eyes. He's going to confession. It's getting better. Okay, that's one thing. It's another thing that he doesn't seem like it's a big deal. Or, okay, if you think it's a big deal, I'll try to stop, but he's looking at it. No, This is all under the category of the walking hormone, and ladies, you deserve a heck of a lot better. Now, next guy is the guy that we would call the smooth criminal. All right, now the smooth criminal has the same goal in mind as the walking hormone, but instead of being overt in his attempt to get it, he's more covert. He knows that although a lot of guys don't really need a reason to have sex, typically women do need a good reason to have sex. And so they'll actually tell the girl that, one guy came up to me at high school, and I was getting ready to go to the all-girls high school nearby. And he actually said to me, do you ever tell the girls that a guy will say that he's okay not having sex with her so that she'll give it to him? And I did actually point out to him that, yes, I actually do point that out to the ladies. Because, as if it was actually needed, scientists have actually published research papers about college guys that prove that college guys will admit that they pretend to be more kind, more sincere, and more trustworthy than they really are as a ploy to become more sexually desirable to women. And so, look, this is not what you want. And the guy might make you feel like you're in the driver's seat of like, oh, we won't do this unless you're ready for it, unless you feel comfortable. We don't need to do that unless you feel ready. But I'm telling you, his indifference is manipulative. One woman said to me, she said, I feel like I owe it to him to do some stuff because he's such an understanding person about my decision not to have sex. But look, do not be impressed by the fact that a guy won't pressure you. That is not extra points. That is his duty as a man. And if he says, oh, I'm willing, to wait if you want a man who will wait for you and with you. Not just a guy who's going to wait for you. You want a guy that's going to wait with you, that if you're tempted, he can be strong. Because look, if the only thing holding between you and sex is your consent, because he's already given in his own mind, it's just a matter of time before you both fall. It's almost like training a dog to balance a treat on their nose, right? Like, don't eat it. I know that bacon smells good, but okay, now you can eat it. You can train a dog to hold out like that, just for a couple minutes or whatever. But as soon as you say yes, they take it. But if you're dating a guy who basically views your body and the pleasure you can offer him as some treat balanced on his nose that he can grab as soon as you just say the word yes, that's not a healthy relationship. This guy's a smooth criminal. Get out. Next guy would be the control freak. Now, the control freak, initially, usually in the beginning stages of a relationship, a girl will feel flattered by the fact that he's so interested in her and so almost possessive about her and jealous about her. It makes her feel desired. But as time goes on, it gets a little creepy, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute. He wants to stalk me and he wants to know what's going on. And so we came out with some bullet points to help you to recognize if you're with the control freak. Now, the more things you recognize on this list, the bigger the red flag should be to get out. Point number 1, he interrogates you. Did you talk to any other guys while you were out? He behaves badly and then blames it on other people or events. He emphasizes or exaggerates how bad his life is while doing nothing to improve it. He hits things to deal with his anger. He has a jealousy problem, but says it's because he loves you. He insults you and then says he's kidding. He makes you feel like you have to apologize for things that aren't even your fault. He makes you feel like he can't live without you or that you can't live without him. He tries to control the amount of time you spend with your friends or family, makes you feel guilty for being with other people, tries to control the way you dress. He always needs to know where you're at or what you're doing. And his mood swings from extremes of sweetness to selfishness. He expects you to answer your phone or return his messages immediately. And he sets kind of one standard for himself of how he expects you to live, one standard for how he expects you to live, totally different standard about how he lives. And he makes it feel like it's your job to keep him from getting angry, that his emotions are your responsibility. And then he'll constantly accuse you of being flirting, being unfaithful with other guys, when honestly, he's the one who's probably guilty. He'll pressure you to do sexual things, act like a victim instead of taking a responsibility. It makes you feel like you're lucky to have him instead of making you feel like he's lucky to have you. Makes you feel like his problems in life would be solved if only you just loved him enough. Because, oh, I messed up. Oh, well, if you had just done this better, you just done that better. If you feel like you need to hide the truth about this relationship from the people who love you. You fear that otherwise you would not be allowed to see him, or you don't have peace about the relationship, and you often feel sad about it. Your self-esteem has suffered because of the relationship. You always feel like you're living according to his moods and his wishes. So look, the more these things you checked off, the faster you should get out of this relationship. And granted, controlling guys typically have all kinds of tricks that they can pull out of their sleeves to make you stay away, one of which is social isolation from family and friends. That's one reason they don't want you getting too close to other people. Because like if a guy doesn't want to meet your parents, oh, I'm not real interested in hanging out along that. I don't need to come home for, spring break to see your parents. Like, this isn't the kind of guy you want. Because when you get married, you don't just marry a person, you marry the whole family. And a lot of times parents and family and friends, they can see red flags that we miss out on. And the end reason why he's insecure, why he's so possessive, isn't because he loves you so much. It's because he's deeply insecure. And sometimes girls fall for controlling relationships with guys. For such strong-willed guys. Why? Because often they lack a will of their own. And if she doesn't know her own identity, a controlling guy is more than happy to give her her identity. One girl emailed me and she said, after I got over him, which took a pretty long time, I realized what I was looking so hard for before I met him, myself. And so this is why you got to find yourself before you find your soulmate. If you're in a toxic relationship, I want you to make a checklist, almost like a little calendar of what's going on in that relationship. Yeah, today he did this and he said that and he made me feel this way or that way. Make a list of that stuff because you can argue a lot of times with your memory, but you can't argue with your handwriting. And when you see it right there in this pattern of distrust and controlling and possess, if you want that for the rest of your life, then hey, I guess you found the right guy. But if you want a man who actually trusts you with his heart and like, hey, you can be friends with other guys. I trust you're going to be appropriate. That's the type of freedom and peace that you deserve in your relationship. And if you're not going to have it in a dating relationship, trust me, it will not exist in a marriage. So hold out for what you truly deserve. Get away from the control freak and don't get away alone. Make sure you got a breakup buddy. Make sure you've got family and friends that can surround you for those times you begin to doubt yourself, because these control freak people tend to be very gaslighting in terms of getting you to think that your memory is wrong. Oh, no, you're remembering that all wrong. Or that didn't really happen. This happened. And then you start thinking you're crazy. Like, well, maybe it didn't. Maybe I am too uptight and maybe I have been too hard on him. That's why you need other people that can fact check the reality of your memory that this thing is not healthy. Guy number 6 is the guy that we call the older guy. Now, granted, it depends which age you are when it comes to dating older guys. The older you are, the less an age gap matters, right? I mean, if you're in a retirement home and you're 80 and he's 90, nobody really cares, right? But if he's 20 and you're 10, we've got some serious issues. Now, I remember hearing one girl, she said, well, what do you think about the half your age plus 7 rule? Like, the what? Half your age plus 7. And I kind of thought about it, like, okay, so if you're 20 or he's 20 and half that is 10 plus 7, 17. Okay, that's not too big of an age gap. Or he's 40. It is so half of your age and then add 7 to that. And that's usually a relatively reasonable gap in terms of ages. Now, that's not some hard and fast rule. I could definitely think of examples where it wouldn't work. If he's like a 20-year-old college guy, you're a 17-year-old high school girl, might not be the best situation there. But really ask yourself, when I am his age, would I consider dating a boy who's presently my age? And if the very thought of that makes you cringe, then maybe it makes some sense to step back a little bit. For one reason, the practicality of this. If you're a younger person and he's several years older, well, that means he could be off to college and you might have to have a 4-year long distance relationship. So practicality is one issue. I'd also invite you to look into your own life. How's your relationship with your dad? If your relationship with your father is strained, broken, was never there, a lot of times girls look to older guys for the love that they never got from their own fathers, but they're not going to find it in the arms of another man. And so make sure you're not doing that as the root cause of why you're pursuing the older guys. Now, some girls just pursue older guys because they're more mature, right? And that's true because men typically, boys mature about 3 years later than girls do neurologically when it comes to adolescence. So a lot of girls get bored with boys their own age because like, look, I want to have an intellectually stimulating conversation with this guy and he's making armpit noises and we're just not connecting here. So I understand that. But look at the age gap, because if he's as mature as you think he is, he'd probably be dating girls roughly his own age. And there's a big frustration, obviously, this with high school girls. In the New York Times, there was an article where they interviewed high school boys about the hookup culture on campus. One of the high school boys said this: some senior girls won't even look at us, but underclassmen, those girls, they look at us like we're gods, which of course we are, so it works out well. I can't imagine why the upperclassmen girls don't even want to look at you. Well, this is what's going on. A lot of those girls looking after the older guys, but unfortunately, 3 out of 4 times when a girl loses her virginity as a teenager, she's losing it to an older guy. Most teen pregnancies, it's an older guy. And so be patient. This obviously is not a hard and fast rule that any guy who's 2 years older than you is horrible, but use caution and prudence. That the younger you are, the more the age gap matters. The older you get, obviously, is not as much as a big deal as the maturity gap gets tighter. Now, next guy to avoid is Mr. Guy we would call the potty mouth. Okay, now the potty mouth is a guy who looks like he learned his vocabulary from reading the graffiti on the bathroom of a boy's bathroom stall. Okay, this guy's imagination is in the gutter and his vocabulary expresses that. It's a guy who clearly has expressive language problems, and this will manifest in any number of ways. And one of which is little perverted jokes he kind of tosses in your direction. The reason why he's tossing these little sexual jokes to you is because he wants to see how you react. It's fishermen wants to catch fish. They throw the lure out into the lake, see if the bobber is going to sink, see if something's going to grab onto that. And so he's tossing these things out there. Why? Well, an early church father named Saint Clement of Alexandria said it best. He said, "Filthy talk makes us feel comfortable with filthy action." And so if a guy is joking to you about sexual stuff, it's because to him it is not a joke. He is serious. He's trying to introduce this in a lighthearted manner to see if you're going to fall for this and go into that type of relationship. Back out, because the conversation is the test of a man. If his words are not pure, nor is his heart, nor is his body, nor is his soul, back away. And so that's one type of potty mouth. In fact, I remember when we came out with the Soulmate book, we gave it out at a co-ed high school, and the girls just ate this thing up. They got so excited about it. They made a big poster. They made posters around the school of the top 10 guys to avoid. And I'm walking through the school, and I'm just cracking up. They had a big poster, the top 10 guys to avoid, and they had little drawings of all the guys. And so one of the guys had an actual toilet for a mouth. They're like, "This is Mr. Potty Mouth." You could see the guys in the hallway just like staring like, "Oh, so avoid Mr. Potty Mouth. That's the guy who's going to say perverted things to you. Another type of potty mouth is the guy who's verbally abusive to you, even if he says he's just kidding. And typically the verbal abuse will revolve around one of three things: either your body, your brains, or your previous sexual behavior. Those are the big three easy targets these guys often go after. One girl said to me, she said, "My boyfriend of 2 years sometimes calls me fat or stupid, but then he says he's just kidding. What should I do?" I recommended that she take her car and drive over his foot with it and tell her that she's kidding too, because aren't jokes funny? Look, if this guy can insult her and then tell her he's kidding, how come he can't compliment her and then just tell her he's serious? That's what you honestly deserve. And frankly, though, to just be blunt with you, the longer you stay in a situation like this, the more you're actually going to begin to believe that you deserve this type of abuse, that it's almost your fault. But we got to step back, because like the first time it happens, they say you're a victim, but the next time you let it happen, you're a volunteer. And so at some point, you got to bow out and be like, "Look, I'm not going to be the subject of your little perverted jokes. I'm not going to speak down to me," because they want to wear you down. They essentially want to brainwash you to make you think that you really couldn't end up with anyone better than him, when in reality, you probably couldn't end up with anybody worse than him. And if you really want to prove your intelligence as such a guy, just break up with him, and that will show him exactly how smart you are. Next guy. The next guy you want to avoid is the tearful cheater. Okay, now the tearful cheater is the guy who's unfaithful to you, whether it be porn, flirting with other girls, an affair, whatever. But then after the affair, oh boy, the remorse just pours in. And they come up with all kinds of excuses as to why infidelity should be infinitely pardoned time and time again. I remember meeting one girl, and she told me, she said, "Yeah, he did make out with that other girl, but Jason," she said, and I'm quoting her, she said, "He told me that when he was kissing the other girl, all he could think about was me." I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that's all he could think about, knowing that if you walked in on him, you were going to let him have it. But look, how come he can't think of you while being faithful to you instead of thinking about you while he's cheating on you? Other guys will say, "Oh, well, it was an accident. It just kind of happened." Like, how does that happen? Like, how do you accidentally cheat? You don't, because infidelity is not a spontaneous indiscretion. It is the end result of countless consents in his imagination, to his eyes, from his heart, into the speech, into the flirting, into the behavior. It begins with the eyes, but the eyes are not satisfied with seeing. And then comes the micro affairs into the macro affairs. This is a growth. And for him to tell you it was just a spur of the moment accident, I don't buy it. I mean, one girl told me, oh, my boyfriend told me that other girl just started kissing him. Like, look, I don't know what planet you live on. That doesn't happen, all right? There's always signals getting sent. It's not some spontaneous, oh, okay, well, if she just spontaneously kissed him, what did he do about it? His reaction should have been the same as if you were standing beside him. That type of reflex of, no, I'm taken, sorry. And so don't buy these excuses. I remember another guy said, well, we just started doing stuff and I couldn't stop. Like, what if she walked in the door? Would you just continue that and be like, oh, I'm sorry, can't stop, unable? Look, if he lacks that self-control, then it's a sign he doesn't even have the maturity to date you to begin with. Other guys will say, whoa, I was drunk when it happened. Well, great. If he was drunk when it happens, then that gives you two reasons to break up with him. One, because he's a cheater, and two, because he's a drunkard. Either way, he doesn't deserve you. Another girl emailed me. This is what she said. She said, my ex-boyfriend is seeing this other girl, but he called me the other night. It was really cold, and he offered to come over and keep me warm. I told him not to, but I feel torn because I really want him back. Why do I feel still so attracted to him? Now, thankfully, this girl turned down this guy's offer to provide his heating services. But here's the fact, ladies. Any guy who cheats with you will cheat on you. Cheating is like gossip. Whoever gossips to you is going to gossip about you. Same thing goes with cheating. If a guy's going to cheat with you, he's going to cheat on you. So don't think that you're the one that's eventually going to win him. What's underneath all of this, oftentimes, is your desire to be desired. It's not so much that you desire this unfaithful man, because I really don't think you do. You desire to be cherished. And it's that desire to be desired that has you chasing after this guy, even when you know that he's bad news. But at the end of the day, if you cannot trust the man that you're dating, then you are dating the wrong man. And granted, sometimes distrust is the fruit of our own wounds from previous relationships. Maybe I got burned in the past and I just have a hard time giving my heart away. Okay, sometimes that's the case. Other times, it's just your feminine intuition telling you something is really off here. I don't trust his imagination. I don't trust his eyes. I don't trust his speech. I just don't trust him. And so what you should trust is your gut. Get out. Guy number 9 that you want to avoid is the spiritual midget. Now, the spiritual midget is a guy who might have many other good qualities aside, but when it comes to spirituality, either there's nothing going on there, or he's very lethargic when it comes to his spirituality, or he outright tries to undermine your faith. How do you even believe those little fables in the Bible? How do we know God exists? And he'll pretend to be all philosophical or whatever. Maybe he stumps you and you're not quite sure how to answer. This is not what you want in a dating relationship. You don't want to go all missionary dating. And so what I would encourage you to think of is, what do you want? I mean, imagine 10 years from now being in a marriage, and maybe it's 8:30 at night, and you walk down the hallway and you look inside your little daughter's room. Maybe she's 3 years old, and your husband's tucking in her in bed, and you can see your husband kneeling on the carpet beside her bed, praying with her, just kind of teaching her the Hail Mary. And you would just kind of rest your head on the doorpost and just look in at that beautiful sight of your husband being the spiritual priest of that domestic church of your family that he ought to be. That's what you desire. That's what you crave. Hold out. I mean, look, there's 7 billion guys on the planet out there. There's plenty of good believers. For love of them, hold out for them. Because look, if a guy is not into his faith, and you really are, and you get married, more often than not, the children will follow the spiritual path of the father, even if the mother's devout. If the father's devout and the mother's lukewarm, typically the kids will still follow the dad's spiritual path. Study after study has shown this. And so if you want to go to mass as a family one day, you want to sit in the pew with your husband and all the kids, then hold out for that. Because you don't want to be the mom leaving off the church, and then your husband doesn't want to get off the couch because he's watching football, and then the kids start giving you a hard time. How come we got to get out of bed and go to church when dad gets to stay home, watch TV? That type of being unevenly yoked, as the scriptures tell us, is a difficult thing. Now you think, well, okay, what do I just dump a guy because he's not as holy as I am? Well, the question is he really interested? Like, is he really pursuing it? If you say, hey, we got a retreat coming up next weekend through the Newman Center at my college campus. Do you want to come with me? He's like, whatever. No, I'm not interested. That's a red flag. If he's like, yeah, I don't understand all that church stuff, but, hey, I'm open to learning. I'm open to, if God's out there, he has a plan for me, I want to learn about it. Hey, okay, maybe we're not on the exact same spiritual page here, but he's willing. Because you've got to discern on your own. Am I content if things don't change? Am I really content long-term if he doesn't bloom into this wonderful conversion and become a saint? If you're okay with that never happening, then okay. But if you really long for him to be on a spiritual page that he's not at right now, really take an honest look, because this isn't just a temporal decision you're making, it's an eternal one. You want a man who will encourage your family to be saints. St. John Paul II said that his father's example to him was his first seminary, because he said, after my mom died, he said, my father's life became one of almost constant prayer. He said, sometimes I would wake up in the night and I would look into my father's room and see him kneeling on the floor, just lost in prayer. And I learned from that, like, look, men pray. Men take their interior lives seriously. In fact, a friend of mine, Devin Shaw, has wrote tremendous things on fatherhood. And he said, you can gauge a man's love for his wife and children by the extent to which he defends his interior life of prayer. A man who has a rich interior life and carves out that time for mass, for adoration, for rosary, for prayer on his own and with the family, that is a great measure of his love for his wife and kids. And how can you measure a man's love by that? Well, because God is love. And if I know how to receive the love of the Father, then I can transmit that. Loving in marriage and parenthood is a lot about just letting Jesus Christ love through you to the people in your household. And so I would say hold out for a good man of God, really do. I don't have a problem with missionary friendships and things like that, but when it comes to dating, try to be realistic and keep your standards high as heaven. Now, last guy to avoid. He's got a longer title than the others. We named this guy Mr. I don't have enough social skills to meet girls without the internet, okay? This is the type of guy that would much rather hide behind his cell phone to find a date than to look a woman in the eyes. I remember meeting some high school guys and they're like, oh, these apps are awesome. You know, all I got to do is swipe this way and that way, and you're never going to get rejected. You never have to, face those fears. And it was just like, man, these guys taking this path of least resistance is not good. Now, granted, there are good online places to meet other people, because I know a lot of great devout Catholic young adults that are like, look, my workplace, there's no potential candidates there. And, my gym or wherever I usually go, they're just not the type of people that I want to spend my life with. But I don't want to, I feel called to marriage. I want to be a mother one day, but where am I going to find these people? There are good Catholic sites that you can turn to, whether it's Catholic Match, Catholic Singles, Ave Maria Singles, Catholic Chemistry. There's lots of good sites out there. Now, some of them have a bigger pool of people on those sites, and so you're going to find a larger disparity in terms of the quality of the faith of those potential future boyfriends or whatever, but you've got to be discerning in this, because we don't want to commercialize dating, that it's like a big menu where we're just flipping through. Oh, I like him, like that. We need to make it more personal. And what I mean by that is I don't believe in online dating, but I do believe in online meeting, because dating is something that has to take place face to face, grounded in reality. Otherwise, we can enter into relationships with gigantic assumptions about this person based upon their social media profiles that we've been scouring through, instead of really getting to know them. And so take your time. Yeah, there are good guys out there using these online platforms to meet girls, so I don't want to scare you away from all those guys. But if the majority of what you know about a man is on a social media profile, make sure to get to know him in person. Spending time in family, in service, in sports, so you can see each other at your good times and at your bad. Now, after hearing these top 10 guys to avoid, a lot of you girls are asking one primary question, which is this. Okay, Jason, that was really nice, but who's left? Basically, Jason, as I see it, the only men left are either married, in a seminary, or in a nursing home, because I'm not seeing any other single young available men that fit the bill that aren't these things. Well, don't give up hope. Realize the power that you have as a woman to keep your standards high, the impact that can make on civilizations as a whole. Archbishop Fulton Sheen wrote this. He said, the higher the love, the more demands will be made on us to conform to that idea. To a great extent, the level of any civilization is the level of its womanhood. When a man loves a woman, he has to become worthy of her. The higher her virtue, the more noble her character, the more devoted she is to truth, justice, and goodness, the more a man has to aspire to be worthy of her. The history of civilization could actually be written in terms of the level of its women. Now, by saying this, he's not placing a burden upon you of just like, oh, it's your job to fix society. No, I think he's trying to empower you to realize the power that you have to set that bar high. Because a man can be as much of a gentleman as a woman requires. And if a culture of women sets the bar down here, the men don't have to jump real high. And so if you take this list of the top 10 guys to avoid, and we'll run through them again. The flip-flopper, a problem child, walking hormone, smooth criminal, control freak, older guy, potty mouth, tearful cheater, spiritual midget, and Mr. I don't have enough social skills to meet girls without the internet. Now let's flip these things upside down. What you would end up with is a guy who would be faithful, mature, pure, honest, respectful, independent, and a sincere spiritual leader. This is not a fairy tale. This, I believe, ladies, is what God gave you as a desire. It's a gift that he gave you, this deep desire of your heart. So if you're in an unhealthy relationship, please get out. Do not squander just years of your life trying to change a guy or hoping he's going to miraculously improve. You are better than that. And I know it can be discouraging at times. I know it can be disheartening, but ladies, I've always said this, that is a much better thing to be disappointed in some guys than to be disappointed in yourself for settling for a guy who's only half the man that you deserve. And so ladies, keep your standards as high as heaven. If you have questions when it comes to relationship, please send them to us. We'll answer them on the podcast. The way to submit questions is if you become a supporter on Patreon. You just go to patreon.com/Jason Evert, and our supporters there keep this whole ministry and podcast going. And then we'll send you free books, exclusive content. You get early access to all the podcast episodes, free t-shirts. I'll give you my email. Got questions, I'll answer them then. We'll send you personal video answers to questions you may have. If I come to give a seminar in your area, we can meet up in person with the other patrons in the area. All those little perks you get by joining us at patreon.com/Jason Evert. I'll put the link of that in the show notes, along with the link to our pilgrimages, if you want to come along with us to the Holy Land or to Poland, and also to make sure to check out Daily Catholic Wisdom and Hollow for 14 days for free. The link is in the show notes. So God bless you, and be assured of my prayers as you find and discover to give and receive the love that God has planned for you.